Well, my name is Peter Litster. I live in Olympia, Washington, and I have become, first of all, I was brought up in a coal mining family in eastern Utah. I was brought up in a coal field, and the United Mine Workers, provided what we needed for our subsistence growing up as a kid. I have a lot of sympathy for families who are supported by the mining industry. I understand and sympathize with the needs for people to be able to make a living. Unfortunately, I also think that we're in a time in our history where fossil fuels are doing far too much damage to our climate, to our environment, and I also realize that fossil fuel markets, so much of what we're digging up in the United States isn't even for the purpose of being used in the United States. It's for export to other countries. I have become acquainted with people in India and China, for example, who are involved in the economics of fossil fuel use and the markets, fossil fuel markets in Asia, and also in the regulatory environment around the fossil fuel supply in Asia. And it just seems that industry has become so antiquated, and we have so many other options for developing our energy future, that I don't see anymore where it's necessary to put our ecosystem at risk, the life support system that we live on. I'm also someone who literally believes that I am the living child biologically of the Earth, that the Earth is in fact a living entity that we're a part of, and I don't think we have the right as human beings to desecrate that. And I think that tearing up, I've also become acquainted with people in the Powder River Basin who are on the supply side of the coal that is being proposed for increased export to Asia, and particularly the native people, the Northern Cheyenne people in the Powder River Basin, and I've heard some of the horror stories about things like man camps and the kinds of real serious social problems that come from the supply side of that industry. Also in the fossil fuel beds that I grew up in and that so much of my family still lives in, there's some really major problems with these kinds of fossil fuel projects where they create these, or participate or perpetuate these boom-bust cycles, where the kinds of pressures that are put on communities on the supply side of the fossil fuel industry can be horrible. I mean, the pressure on social services, the pressure on the justice system, the pressure on the jails and the hospitals, and even my own family members who are still dependent on that. When there's a major bust cycle, they talk about how they bring in all of these young men to come work in these camps, and it leads to all sorts of problems where you get a bunch of young men, unmarried, starting fights in the bars, harassing women. I've even had family members of mine talk about how they feel like they're under military occupation when the boom side of these industries take place. So I think that we need to really be moving in. I hope this is being edited because I'm losing my train of thought a little bit here, but I hope that we can put a lot more priority on developing other energy sources, and that we need to put a lot more effort into changing our lifestyles and really encouraging a change of lifestyle so that we're not maintaining this big demand on fuel sources that are just so toxic and so unnecessary. So that's why I'm here.